Really? Serious? You could take my seat? Yeah.
Chef, come on. That is his seat.
Like,
He's my co-host. I mean,
yeah, like, I thought we were
we
friends.
can start a new show together, buddy,
Put
but
the blanket on the floor for you. Okay.
we can have a show just with you, but we are gonna be filming, buddy. Buddy. I think like what's on my mind is what I did today because it's often like the thing that's so recent.
Yeah.
And today I attended, I organized and attended a diversity, equity, and inclusion seminar for an entire staff
Mm-hmm.
of professionals for a nonprofit. And
Hmm.
I guess the nonprofit I work at, I can say that, right?
Hmm.
Can I say that? Have I said that before? I work at the library. Okay.
You just did.
All right. So I work at the, well, we can always cut things.
You work at a library. You don't say where there's many.
Yeah. So I attended a diversity, equity, and inclusion staff training for the library that I run marketing and development for. And I organized this to happen. And so many fascinating things came up, like with our staff and subject matter and energy. And I think like memories and triggers unlocked. And it was, it was interesting. And I think that like, it was fascinating because I think when you're training, you're doing like workplace trainings. We've all had a job where workplace trainings were required of us.
I always thought they were a waste of time, personally.
Hmm,
Not saying yours was, but I hated having to sit in required meetings.
hmm.
It bothered me.
That's hard. It's hard because if you ask people to do the work, though, they won't do it
Hmm.
themselves, or not everyone will.
Mm-hmm.
And this work that we talked about was a lot about addressing racism, inherent biases, microaggressions, uh, and addressing the self. So, like, all of these things really stem from self awareness. And it was definitely not a DEI training centered around tools and resources to help you while at work, but it was a diversity, equity being a key part, and inclusion training centered around tools that you should be using every single day, especially even more so, I think, in your personal life. And just a lot of things I think came up for me, and a lot of thoughts came up. And like this big aspect that we talked about was accountability,
Mm-hmm.
which is very important. And I think at times we've all struggled with like holding ourselves accountable and wanting to admit when we were wrong or we could have done more, or when at the time we thought we had done everything we could and later on we get new information and realize we could have done better. And I don't know, I think that's interesting. I don't know if there was as much to talk about with it, but
What did you take away from it? Did you run the meeting or
no.
okay?
No, Faces International did.
Mm-hmm.
Faces International is a marketing and development organization focused on training diversity, equity, and inclusion work
Mm-hmm.
for nonprofits
So
and for profit companies.
so essentially like to break it down for me. Is it training most simplified that makes a person be aware of themselves and how they feel around people that aren't like them or from a different culture or does it work to build up their
Mm.
awareness of those things so that they have a choice?
Oh, this is such a good point. Okay, so I feel like this is so important to
Because
talk to
otherwise,
you.
a person will just react how they react. If
Yeah,
they hate a certain type of person, they'll just
yeah.
react and they won't be able to not show it.
I feel like this is so important to talk to you about because you are one of the most sensitive people I've met, sensitive to other people and their experiences. But at the same time, you came up, and when you were getting your education, I think DEI was not, and diversity, equity, racial, critical race theory, like these weren't hot button topics in your education, probably.
No.
Right.
Mhm.
And this is like, especially the 2020, 2021, these were big buzzwords.
Mhm.
So basically, my takeaway of this kind of work was to address at all levels, stages, and developments um, oppression, microaggressions, prejudices within you about a certain person's background. And that could be any background. It could be socioeconomic, race, gender, age, sexual orientation. And first becoming aware of the self, aware of your own identities and what you identify. Like, I'm a daughter,
Yeah.
I'm a mother, I am a sister, I'm a friend, I represent as a member of the LGBT community, whatever those identities are,
Mhm.
being self aware about yourself, how you behave. And then once you become aware of the self, which we talk about all the time,
Mhm.
then you're able to be aware of others. And we talk about like that you can't have awareness of others until you're even aware of the self.
So with people, in order to change, in order to help somebody change, you have to build in a sort of value in a way. Like there has to be an incentive, huge incentive for a person to change. People love who they love, and they love also to hate who they hate.
Hmm.
Um, and I hate to be so extreme with love or hate because there's a lot of in between too.
No, but you're
But like,
right.
what is the incentive for them to change?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Everyone loves having an enemy. We love an enemy on a TV show. We love our classic Disney villains. Like, we like to have an enemy, and sometimes we're bonded together by the same enemy, and sometimes we're not. The facilitators that were their faces, they did a wonderful job. Tyrone Russell and Kevin
Mm.
Green, they're great. And one of the first things we talked about is like the first thing he said, which is funny that you bring this up. First thing he said is, "Why are you doing this work? Like, why would you do it?" And people went around the rooms and they talked about like their why. Like I said, like it gives us the opportunity to connect with our community better, to help people, to be aware of ourselves, to provide better resources, all these things. And he was like, in my opinion, there are only three reasons you do this work, or somebody will be really willing to do this work, or someone does this. The first one is because it's literally life or death.
Mm-hmm.
It's survival. It's we're addressing like those raw basics of, race and hate and actual survival for keeping yourself alive. And then the second is, and I'm definitely paraphrasing, the second was that you're willing to put in work, but it can be kind of superficial, and you're willing to put in work or say that you care up to the point that it means that you have to give something else up. And then the third thing is that you're willing to put in work because someone else you love is either you are impacted yourself or someone you love is impacted by,
Negatively by something.
yeah, there's someone else is impacted by um these prejudices.
Do you feel like that's the strongest motivator? Is somebody was negatively impacted by prejudice? Like, do you think that like change is motivated by pain?
I think you teach me that it is
No,
often.
no. Did it seem that way in that group today? Or people getting
Mm,
real? Or was it like the
mm,
PC bullshit answers that
mm.
people give in corporate meetings?
Um, I'm going to talk about this stuff kind of objectively. It's pretty easy to find where I work, and the
Mm-hmm.
things that were shared in the work that we did was definitely emotional and private. And I want everyone to know that the things they say to me in that room and aside, as I'm a safe space for these people, and I want them.
Oh, hi.
And Chef feels like we're a safe
Yes,
space
we are
for
a safe
him.
space for him.
buddy,
He wants a
buddy.
little camera time. It's okay. He wants to be included. Inclusion. It's about
It is about inclusion.
yes.
Okay, breathe.
He did already. Yeah, he breathed in the
All right, you
mic.
gotta get down. You got no.
Go lay down, buddy.
He's
Lay down,
he's in
big
his weird
boy.
human goblin mode, honey.
Oh, you're
Chen.
adorable. Yeah. Oh, I love you.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's funny. Um, so I'm not gonna specifically talk about what people said and what their reactions were. Um, because, I want to protect everyone and make them feel, safe. But I will say that, like, to give a little bit of background, what I experienced today was the first time we've done this.
Mm.
So it's a new initiative, part of the strategic plan of that library, and many organizations, many companies, many people, as their personal little agenda was that, people want to be more loving, more inclusive. But for businesses, for companies, and for a lot of people, I think it's really important to talk about this because, you're an entrepreneur, you make your own rules, you're a company of one. That's very rare. Most people, like, a great deal of their lives is spent at their job, 40 hours a week plus. Those are the people, the energy they spend their time with. Um, and so it's important to talk about this. So it was the first day we ever initiated this kind of training and work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's their first day. I'm not going to begin to know what everyone's personal lives are like, but for many of these people, they've never been in therapy, they've never addressed critical race theory, they've never had a professional diversity, equity, and inclusion training.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's really starting at square one. So I will say that, like, for starting at, like, the beginning, everyone did a great job, and I know that I could feel how, even if people were quiet, I could feel how actively they were listening. And sometimes that's the biggest step, is like just being able to listen. And I think it's very important, and I think it's important for you to keep in mind because, like, I guess my identifiers that I am a young female, half black and Italian woman, right? So these would be things that you would kind of address and be like, how have these identifiers impacted you? I haven't personally experienced racism that has made me feel unsafe for my physical health. I have experienced racism that made me feel uncomfortable, that made me feel prejudiced, that made me feel um, othered, made me feel like I was not as valued, that
Mm-hmm.
might affect the bottom line of um, me getting an opportunity in my quality of life, but not in terms of my safety.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard, right? It's hard because I think when you approach things like this, it's like you grew up in a rough neighborhood. You grew up in a rough neighborhood. You know what growing up around tough and violence and hard people and, like, hard stories. You've got some stories to tell, right? And so I feel like it could be really intimidating to come to someone like you and be like, I have this story of a time I felt unsafe when I was a kid. And then fearing that you're going to be like, oh, that's nothing. Like, you're a wussy. Like, you're a wussy, you're a pussy. Like, you didn't really go through it.
Well, I
I
don't.
went through it.
So you don't self-disclose until it's relevant, really relevant, really, really relevant to help that person. So like, and the one thing that I have learned that suffering is suffering. That like just because their suffering isn't quite how you as large or as painful as you might have suffered at a point in your life, it still was enough to trigger their brain body trauma body into reacting. So
Mm,
it's like if it's a big enough shock, it doesn't matter what it is. It was suffering, it was despair to them, it was hard on them. So you can't compare one to another. So I never do. So as a very sensitive
yes.
person can get yelled at
Yes.
in the wrong way, and that changes their brain permanently. And it's one little thing, or maybe a series of the same thing, but that can do it.
Yes.
But another person, you could throw them in the middle of a very very difficult, like a war zone, and they're also affected. So I think suffering is suffering. I don't think it's comparable.
And I think that that is a very equitable way to look at it. That is exactly how you should look at it, as my experience could have been very harsh,
Mm-hmm.
and yours was equally as harsh for you and where you come from and where you grew up. No one's is worse. It's weighted.
Mm-hmm.
No one's is worse or better than the others. And no one's experience is less valid, right? It's just like weighing out those experiences as being like,
Mm.
yours isn't more valid or less
You know what I
valid.
heard? I heard a an an interesting saying, and this is minorly controversial, but it says that like God or the universe or whatever you believe in, this is more geared towards people that believe in God, but it said that God will give you the difficult experiences, as many difficult experiences as you need in your life to trust Him 100%, and to stop trusting, sort of the ego or the self or the brain or the mind, and to put your trust into something larger. And it was an interesting, I forget where I heard it or where it was said. Um, but it was interesting. It was interesting because you see lots of people that they they go through a lot of things over the course of their life, and then you see other people that go through very challenges, and they seem to have a peace about them. They seem to have a calmness. They take whatever comes, and they, like I say, they pivot. They just kind of make lemonade when they're given lemons, and they seem to handle it pretty well. Because they trust that. I feel like it's because they trust they're going to have what it takes in the moment to handle what life gives them if they are rooted in the present moment. If you're rooted in the mind and the ego and the agenda, you're going to mourn the loss of your agenda, that you can't carry it out the way you wanted to, or you couldn't get the things done you wanted to. But if you're in the moment, you're not even thinking of that list. That list changes. Now, it's not that you shouldn't have goals, but like your list should change depending on what the universe hands you on a daily. And I think that
Mm,
that's, you know, your best isn't always going to be the same.
yeah, definitely. That's part of what we talked about in this training, and just to be aware of in general, is how can you manage your relationships, your new relationships, the people you meet, the people that you have to interact with as part of your job at work,
Mm-hmm.
your closest relationships, and how can you be sensitive to their experiences. And I
By not
believe,
being stuck in yours,
yeah, it
by
definitely
listening.
yes, and it requires holding multiple truths at a time. And be like,
Mm-hmm.
your experience is true, their experience is true,
But your
his
experience
experience
can't
is
be
true too.
more true as theirs in that moment.
It's equally true.
Yeah, equally true.
Yeah. One person's experience doesn't invalidate yours.
No, but I mean, in the present moment, if somebody's speaking to you and you have something on your mind, you'll have to sort of temporarily leave that behind, come into that present, listen to the person. So that's what I mean by um, their truth is equally valid. Like you have to be willing to let your whatever's going on go in order to be with them. And for some people, it's really hard letting the mind go to be with anyone.
I feel attacked. Can we
No,
stop this? I feel
no,
attacked right
no,
now.
no. That wasn't pointed at you. It's pointed towards you as a top, not
Okay.
at you.
All
It was
right.
speaking to you. Yeah,
Okay.
not at you.
I feel.
It wasn't an accusation. But have you ever experienced that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it happened to you, didn't it?
I'm a person that likes to be busy.
Hmm.
I have a small addiction to hubbub. I like the hubbub. I,
What
I'm
is
always
the
doing something.
freak is hubbub?
Hubbub. I've been told that I have an addiction to hubbub. Like you're like, yeah, you love the hubbub. You like the
Okay,
stuff
okay,
going
okay, okay,
on.
okay.
And
Hubbub, hubbub.
I'm a special person, and because I'm better than other people, I get more opportunities. And so more people place their trust in me. I'm a lot like the royal family. Like God has bestowed this very important position on me. And other people don't get as many opportunities because I'm better. And so that means I have a lot of stuff that I have to do, and it can be hard for me to stay in the moment.
Wow. Okay. Um, yeah.
No,
Uh,
I do have a hard time sometimes being in the moment. And this weekend, I took the entire weekend off
mm-hmm,
for the first time in like I cannot even tell you,
mm-hmm,
and I didn't work like all weekend.
mm,
Like I didn't do anything.
mm-hmm.
Went and got the car washed, went to a store, got some makeup.
Self-maintenance weekend.
I made dinner.
Yeah.
I slept in every day. Just watched TV and a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Went out to eat. Like just hung out. It was so nice.
You reset your like busy
I got to be present, and it
brain.
helped me be present in my physical body too,
Mm-hmm.
and be more present with others. And it was really nice. And I am definitely a person that I really struggle with balance.
Well, this is like changing gears, but in this conversation, but I feel like as you kind of get old, or you learn to what like you learn to be present with yourself, with your body, with your mind, with your sort of operating energy, and you learn to like know when to do what, when you need that weekend, when you need that time off, when you need to sit in a room with a book, like when you need to do these reactions to get you back in balance. And you kind of have that go to on already, as time moves forward, because you spent so much time watching yourself, and you've spent so many years watching yourself go out of balance, that you'll strive by any means to keep yourself in balance, in the moment, operating and functioning well. It's very, very important to do that. Yes. Sometimes. Yes. Would you rather be out of balance sometimes for fun? It is fun sometimes to be.
No, being balanced literally is harder than playing Flappy Bird. It's harder than playing Flappy Bird and needing to keep the or Angry Bird or whatever they're calling it now, like in the middle and being like, it's literally
Mm-hmm.
exactly like that. Being a balanced person
Mm-hmm.
with your schedule and energetically and with your resources,
Mm-hmm.
with your time, like it's
Well,
so
because you're
difficult.
training the mind, essentially, is what you're doing. The Buddhists said that, like, training a mind to stay in its in awareness, to stay in its in the pocket, so to speak, is like it's like you have a wild animal on a leash that's constantly running off, and you have to reel it back in every millisecond. So that's why that's difficult. It's not because the outer world changes, because your inner world is also changing, cycling at lightning speed. And when you slow down inside, you gain entry to that infinite present moment. Everything slows down. Time opens up because you're not lost in imagination land or past imagination land. You're here. And all the time is yours now. You own it. You can do it at what you want, but you have to slow your mind down. And that's why you need to take the weekend off. You need to wash the car and your butt and all those things that,
What?
the car and your butt, and bathe, self-care.
You heard it. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here. You gotta wash your butt to be balanced.
You do. He agrees too.
You have lipstick on your mouth. Who have you been kissing? Huh? Who have you been kissing? All right, Chef, you gotta tell him. What do you do to be a balanced puppy?
What do you do? He can't answer me if you do that. What do you do?
What do you do to be a balanced little guy?
What do you do? You take naps. I can see that. Yeah. He's a good napper.
Can we
Does
switch?
that does that make sense though?
Yeah. Can we
Can we
switch
do
it up
that?
a little bit?
What do you want to do?
Can I try something?
Sure.
Okay. I'm gonna try something, and I feel a little stuffy right now.
Yeah.
And I just want to look at you,
Yeah.
and I truly want to forget about the cameras, and I really want to just be in session with you. Is that okay? I want to be in that room, but here,
Okay.
and I literally just want to treat you like because I just want to see what comes out.
Mhm.
Because I haven't done this with you, like, not in there. I want you to treat me like what you would say to me if I just walked in your office and I sat down and you hadn't seen me all week.
Hey, how you doing?
You wouldn't say it like that.
How was your week?
It was okay.
Don't make
It was
stuff up
good.
now.
It was good. It was
Mhm.
good. It was actually really good.
You had a good week?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, I feel happy. Since the last time I think I had therapy with you,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I've had a good 5 days. I've had a good 5 days. A relaxing 5 days, a balanced 5 days.
What has changed? Can you kind of outside of just feeling better? Has anything been different? Anything in your habits? Anything in your work life? Anything in your personal, domestic life?
Oh, I doubled my dosage for my meds. So I'm on
Okay.
cloud nine.
Oh, good, good.
Yep.
Well, Soma.
Now,
It's a brave new world.
yeah, it's hard. I might really want to use this, but I don't know if I should say Chandler and I, or if I should, like, I want to try this, or like my partner and I. So, like,
Mhm.
everything, I would change everything else except for maybe some names, since it is recorded. Like, I
Yeah.
would say everything I would normally say,
Yeah.
and be as, like, energetically matching as I can.
That's going to be hard to do.
I
But,
know, but
yeah,
I
I
still
can
want to
do it.
see,
I can do it.
I want it because great things come out of us.
Then we just have to
That where
do
that
it
magic
as
comes from.
normal because we're not hitting that.
I don't really want to say Chandler's name though. All right.
Time to be open. Stop
I just
being
like
afraid.
I spent the entire weekend relaxing,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't do that often. And
Did you spend it with your significant other?
I did,
What
and
did you do? What did you guys do?
nothing. I mean, nothing, like normal people stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we went to the car wash and went shopping, and he bought me makeup,
Mm-hmm.
and we watched movies,
Did you
and
go to Sephora for makeup?
no, Ulta.
No. Oh, okay. Sephora is the den of the beast. I hear.
What?
Yeah, there's demons in Sephora. I heard. Yeah.
I think there's just financial demons because they'll take all your
No, well,
money.
that too, but yeah, I think there's actually like dark
I
things
never know
that
what you're talking
live
about.
in Sephora.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we
You have
just
to be a man. They attack men. They don't attack women.
I've taken men to Sephora before. They don't
They
attack.
they weren't being honest if they
Anyway.
didn't. Okay.
Anyway,
Anyway,
enough of I'm paying by the hour here.
you're
Enough of your
we're
bullshit
both paying for
here.
this hour.
But yeah, we like just took the weekend off, and I have a
Mhm.
difficult time with balance, and I feel like it was nice. It was nice for us intimately. It
Mhm.
was nice for us lovingly. It was nice for us relaxingly, and I was getting so exhausted, but it was
Where you're
was
running
really
yourself
nice.
ragged at work and kind of neglecting your. So any relationship that you have currently, you have to spend time with, good time with, to keep it strong. Whether or not that's 10 minutes, in the morning while you're having your coffee, or half an hour when you get home from work, you have to spend that time where you focus on them. And hopefully them on you, but you can't dictate that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I've got my projects, and I've got my business, or I've got one of my businesses, and like starting my new big project, it feels like I definitely have been putting all of my energy into it. I've been putting all of myself into my projects, and like I'm in my manifesting stage. Like, it's my summertime. Summertime is my growth, it's my building, it's my manifesting. It's like when I can literally build buildings and towns out of
Sure.
nowhere,
Yeah.
like actually with the things I can create.
That solar, harnessing that solar energy, of the
Yeah,
planet.
and so I'm like doing that,
Mhm.
and I'm doing an amazing job, and I feel like that's just supposed to take care of itself. It's like, You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
I
we're
do.
good. We've been together for a while. Like that should take care of itself. It's like I'm definitely treating the business like my new baby, my new
Hmm.
child. It's the new child that like takes all my attention that I'm raising, and I come home and I'm like, stop being like annoying. Like, don't need something from me. Like, the kids, the business, the project needed everything from me today. So why do you need something? Like, why do you need something from me now? And I
Well,
in no
what
way am,
what prevents you from dropping?
I'm just like not able to properly prioritize. Like, I'm not able to
So,
be like,
so you walk in. Let's just set this up, right? And you're tired because you just gave however many hours to your business,
yeah,
and you know the unnamed significant other in your life will need something from you, right?
hmm.
What stops you in that moment from dropping whatever shit is running through your head to giving it to him? What stops you from saying, "I'm here, you're here. I'll give you my attention."
I 1000% become my mother, like in the relationship all the time. And I don't mean that in like the way that like my mother was an awful mother, but like there are some times when your parents treat you like more of an adult when than you were when you were a kid. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I am a kid."
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, like I have such a hard time with like the whole parent thing, but like I said this the other day. It's like I need to recognize and remember that it's like, hey, be nice, be gentle, be magnanimous, and forgiving with your parents. They're experiencing life for the first time too. Like
Mm-hmm.
I literally just treat my mom like every parent like they should already be good at this. If you decide to have a child, you should already be like an expert and ready to go and do it perfectly. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
not the case. And it's happened like 4 times.
So when you're tired, so when somebody's tired, hungry, whatever it is, stressed,
Called hungry, angry, lonely,
yeah,
tired.
the lowest common denominator for you is behaviors that you saw your mom do when you were a kid to her significant other.
No, to me. I mean, I was raised by a
So
single
you're mean.
mom.
You're mean. Is that what you're saying?
I've never been mean in my life.
Oh no, no. Did you say I'm mean?
Oh no, I'm nasty.
Okay. So
Um,
that's so you're hurt. And that well, stop, hold on. So you're hurt when you come home and you're tired and they need something. You're hurt. Why are you hurt when they need something from you? Think about something that actually happened.
okay, let me just really quick, let me work through it in my brain for a
Okay.
second. So when I was growing up, my mother was a very competent person. My mother could like plan an entire party, and she could like make us dinner and like this fabulous dinner out of like scraps, like out of nowhere. Like she could plan like a vacation and like all of these things, right? And she could be so competent at so many things, and it was like that was her version of manifesting, her version of just like being, especially with home stuff or scheduling or things that needed to be done,
Mm-hmm.
like anything that had to be done, she was so good at it,
Yeah.
right? And so she'd get so frustrated when you weren't, and I'm like, I'm a kid, I'm like 7 years old, she's just like, just do it, just like do it, like just get it done. You know what I mean? Like even if what I was doing my homework, like my mom was not the type of mother. And I realize like it's helpful for me to say it like what my mother did because I learn more about myself
Mm-hmm.
when I actually start thinking about it
Mm-hmm.
instead of like blocking out my entire childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom was just like not the type of mom that was going to pull out your homework and sit there with you and be like, "Well, what is 2 plus 2? No, it's not 3. Let's use your point." She didn't have the patience. She didn't have the patience. Now, I was not an easy child. I was an insane demon child, like, an insane demon of a child. Like the spirits had taken over me and I needed an exorcism. So I understand that she was not patient. But
Mm-hmm.
my mother, like, I remember I would bring her my flashcards and I would bring her my stuff to ask like for help studying, and she would help me like almost every time. She would help me. She would get the flashcards out and she would take them, and she'd be like, how do you spell cat, how do you spell dog? And if I got one wrong, she'd throw the cards back in my face and she'd be like, you don't know this, go study. Like she thought that for me to study with her, I had to already be perfect at it. For me to study, it wasn't like, oh, we'll get better. Like she did not have the patience for that at all. She could be wonderful, and I'm not even dissing on her. like we all have our strong suits, and those little things, like little busy work sent home from teachers,
Hmm.
she was a single mom. She did not have the time for it,
Yeah.
right? But if I had an art project or if I needed something cooked at school, she was all over it,
Hmm.
right? That was her thing. Like little things, like she didn't like spelling. She didn't like arithmetic. So she's like, I don't want to do this little thing and have you be wrong at it and have you be like, one. She didn't even like, she got me a Monopoly set when I was a kid.
Hmm.
This like limited edition, pretty Disney themed Monopoly set. I loved it. And I asked her to play with me. And she said no. She said that she was at too high of a level, a Monopoly level. She was too high of a Monopoly expert to play with me. And then I would have to go practice until I got to her level to play with her. And I was an only child. And I had no one to practice with. It was just me and her in the house. I had no one to practice with. So I never learned I didn't play my first game of Monopoly till I was 18. I had no idea how to play Monopoly. She just didn't want to teach me basics. She didn't like basics. She didn't want to teach them. She didn't know how to teach basics calmly. And so I definitely now see that for myself, where I understand when it's an employee or it's a team member or collaborator I'm working on with a project, and
Hmm.
like I get it and I'm like, okay, you don't know how to do this, and I'm like calm and I'm walking through it and just like, no problem. I'm really calm, and I use and I like, I don't save it, and I don't, okay, I don't save that energy, and
Hmm.
I don't pace it out. So I'm not like, all right, I'll give you some and then I'm going to take the rest for myself and my partner. I don't do that. I like throw myself in it so hard. I give them everything that I had. And when I get home, I want everything to be taken care of. And I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to teach it. I don't have to teach you how to do something. I don't want to have to teach you how to take care of it. I just want it done.
Okay. Okay.
And
So,
so I see
mm,
those same habits of coming home and
mm,
being like, can you clean up? Can you like clean up the kitchen? Like,
what we were first talking about was like when you get home and somebody needs something of you, and then you
mm,
flipped it on me, and you said that you got home, you're kind of directing, and I'm not talking about that. I'm trying to get at when you get home and you're tired from a long day, regardless of what that happened that day, like you're expended, your energy's on low, right? When somebody, if somebody needs something from you when you walk in that door, why does that hurt you, make you angry, make you frustrated? Why does it feel like pain?
ooh, these are
What
really,
are you protecting? You know what I mean? What are you
I mean, even
maintaining?
him, he always needs something. He
Yeah.
never takes himself outside. He doesn't clean up. He doesn't take care of the dishes. He never feeds himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything around here.
Yeah.
And I pay all of the bills for him.
Hmm.
He doesn't do anything.
Well, he's a
Look,
pretty
and he just
boy.
complains.
Yeah.
No, no,
But
no, no, no,
you're
I
okay
love you, buddy.
because
I'm
like
just kidding.
you
You're a little service dog,
listen,
buddy.
you went into that with him knowing it was going to be that way with your significant other. Sometimes it is that way, and you don't like that. So do you expect competency? Do you expect like do you how do I say this? Hold up.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, I have like this. How do I put it? I do like being needed. I like
Hmm.
being needed, but by other people and for a certain amount of time in a set project,
Hmm.
right? And not when it's so personal. Like it's like, oh, a client,
Hmm.
a client of mine or a friend, or a team member, or a collaborator, they need something from me. And I enjoy the process of like teaching them or helping them with something. And then I get home and I very much, I think, become my mom in that I was a needy child and I had like high standards and I wanted things constantly. I was a little witch. And so like
So when you get home,
so
you switch into I need.
definitely, absolutely. I think that like we become different ages and we could be multiple ages at once. And like when I was a kid, I'm sure my mom would come home after working a 16-hour shift, exhausted, saving lives all day at the hospital. And I would be like, thank God you're home. What were you doing all day? I would literally be like that. I'd be like, what were you even doing all day?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you?
Mm-hmm.
My permission slip wasn't signed. I didn't tell you, but I need 25 cookies made by tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
I need witch hats made by tomorrow morning, and I need a costume. What are you doing? Get
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom would be like screaming, and then she'd be like pissed, but she'd take care of all of it. And so I think that in that moment, I become my mom and myself. I become like, I get home and I revert back to being like the spoiled only child, and I revert to being my mother. I'm my mother in that I don't want to take care of anything. I want it done. I don't want to teach you how to do it. And I also don't want anything to be, I don't want to handle anything myself. And I'm exhausted and I want you to take care of it. And I'm like, I need this and I need this and I need this. Go do it. I don't think I'm the smartest person. Like, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the most business savvy. Like, I'm unbelievably flawed. Like, I am absolutely a work in progress. But when it comes to subject matters of like being competent at home, I'm pretty good. Like, I can put together like a whole dish and party at the last minute. I can put together the things my mother could put together, right? And when I think like, oh, you should be able to do this. You should be able to do all of these things. It's like, well, maybe you didn't have a crash course in entertaining when you were 7 years old, like you did,
Mm-hmm.
and being like your value, and you have to provide value just to be here. My love can at times feel, uh, what's it called? Yeah, my love can sometimes feel conditional for you. So come on, every day it's fucking every day. It's boot camp.
Yeah.
It's hostessing. It's hostessing and how making things look good. Boot camp. I'm gonna teach you how to clean the house all day, every day. Extreme. I'm gonna teach you how to do all of these things that make you a good little housewife. Oh, you met a 25-year-old man, 30-year-old man that doesn't know how to do all of that stuff like you do because he wasn't entered into hostessing boot camp when he was 7. Why are you mad? Why are you disappointed? But I recognize that, like, about myself, like how extreme and the amount of tears and anxiety attacks it took me to get to the point of being competent with all these things. I shouldn't be this competent at being able to like put together a party or plan something or these things at like 25 years old. I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be as competent. This is something that maybe a 45-year-old would have learned, but I learned it in less time. But it was harder. It was like that crash course boot camp, and it was much harder. So I look at you and I'm like, why don't you have these skills yet? When he has skills I don't have at all.
Right.
And he looks at me frustrated and he's like, why don't you just do that?
Right.
And we both do that. And I'm talking at you because I'm treating this like I would in a therapy session. So I'd just be talking at you.
But so like, it's the it. So there's two different things, right? You, it's what you do and what they do. But there's an underlying thing that's more important, and that's the quality of the care that you're giving the people in your life. That's the most important. And it doesn't matter if you're throwing extravagant parties, if you're, I mean, you can do all that with a high level and a high quality of care. Well, what does that mean? That means that, like, you're considering them and putting them on an equal footing with your daily lists. You're considering them in every moment, and sort of the feels of the relationship are as important as the tasks. And you have to kind of, my opinion is, you have to learn to keep that important too. How they feel, how you feel, where you are, where they are. And the list, the tasks, the agenda, whatever you want to call it, should not be a priority. That should be number one. That should be, if that's
No,
important to
definitely.
you, under it. You know, I'm not saying it shouldn't be important to you if you like to do it.
Definitely.
If you love to do it,
Definitely.
it should be important. But
Definitely. And no
it
one
feels,
wants to. It's been pointed out to me. And it's been pointed out to me, and I've never heard anybody like say this, is that like positive reinforcement is a good thing, and that people don't want to do what you ask, and they definitely won't do it nearly as well if you bark at them to do the order, and I just called it an order. So that's also pretty problematic when you bark at them about what you want done. And then after they finish, when you strip it down, take it all apart, and tell them everything they did wrong, they don't appreciate it.
No.
And I can be so appreciative and loving and supportive in some ways, and an absolute bitch in other ways. And I can just like be like, yeah, it's not how my mom would have done it. What? What? I'm 27. I have my own home and job and like all of these things, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like walking around my kitchen alone in our own house, being like, that's not how my mom would have done it. What traumatized little child lives within you, girl, that you're saying things like that? But I still find myself doing it.
I think it takes a while for that, for like you to enter fully and completely into what your life is going to be, and what your habits and your um traditions. Like I think it takes a little while to get away from what you were handed as a child versus what you make your life as an adult. I don't think it happens, 5 minutes into owning your own home. I think it's years and years spent with that person, and you slowly build that life. Like you guys do Christmas Eve, and it's like your thing. And like every year, like that's your shit where you get together and you do the things that you do, and like you're not going to worry about making it like a themed, because it's important that you guys do what you do during that party. Like that's the important thing, not the event. Like that's just like this time that we're living in, and it's fucking horseshit. Where it's like, it's for pictures, or it's for this, or it's for image, and it's like that's not the way to live. And if you're living that way, you're living in a sort of plastic, service level, ego driven state of misery with a fucking smile pasted on your face that is never going to be real. So might as well just stop. It's just my opinion, but I don't like those kinds of people. They're hard for me to be around. It's not that I don't like them. It's just hard for me to be around because it's so different from how like I've learned to operate.
It's just a lot to unlearn, to reverse. It's a lot to reverse engineer and pick the parts that are good and helpful and that can build, and set aside the parts that can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can take apart and be like, oh, I can clean up a house and have fun doing it really quickly and easily,
Mm-hmm.
and I can make a beautiful meal, and I can host a place that have a home where people really want to visit it.
Mm-hmm.
But pick out I'm going to provide stress on everyone, and it's going to be kind of superficial, and it's going to be based on how everything looks, and pick those parts out, and not projecting fears and anxieties and pressures that were projected onto me in the past, which is definitely a default, and that's a lot to unlearn, especially when I I haven't been on my own that long when you really think about it. Like I guess it's been a few years, but like I've been finding my footing.
Yeah.
But when you're like, all right, 23 years of living like this,
Yeah.
I'm only out of the house a few years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot to unlearn, and a lot
Yeah.
to, or
What
like,
I
all right,
think's hard though, when you're at work, you have a crew, and from what it sounds like, you're really good at managing the job and your people and their emotions through the day. And you do both. You manage the job, the site, the client, and your people. So that by the time you get home, that part of you may be totally and completely burnout. That you don't even have a fraction of a percentage left to do that for the person that you say matters the most to you. And that's not uncommon. You see it, that's not a, you see it with lots of people in lots of different cases where they, kids will go to school and keep it together in the classroom. And then they just come home and they're total monsters when they explode on their parents with emotional stuff or this or that or misbehavior or running around and throwing balls at the wall, um, because they were restrained all day. And like, I think in a lot of ways, we only have a certain capacity. We only have a certain amount of energy and we only have a certain capacity. So we have to be really careful and know what our lowest common denominator is. Know it well. Master the lowest common denominator so that, like, it's a good one. So that your absolute worst is punch drunk happy. So that is the lowest you get to. That is your worst. That where you might be tired, you might be expended, you might be cranky, you might be hungry, but like you are punch drunk and kind of happy and just expended, giddy. And I think that like that would be awesome. If we could get you to a place where like you come home and you have nothing to defend.
Hmm.
You don't have to defend or fight for anything because you're perfect who you are and the way you are. So why come in and be upset if the dishes are not the way you wanted or the house is a little off skew? What are you defending in that moment? Are you defending like the idea you thought you were walking into? Is that worth ruining your night? So what are we defending? And we feel the need to like take it up to a level of pain and aggravation with them.
I don't know.
I think we hold images in our mind and expectations, and I think that they're the root of a lot of pain. We have to take who we have and what we have and work with that. Not with what we have in our imaginary head that was never real. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
No?
No, I think, uh, yeah, you're right. I think we've done a good job of mimicking your office. I feel exactly how I would feel in your office, but on the spot in a good way. Open,
Mm-hmm.
raw, vulnerable in a good way.
It should be a little uncomfortable learning, growing. Not always, but a little sometimes. Then you know it's working and you know you're growing. Growth is a little bit painful. Admitting you're not perfect is a little bit painful. Or I guess I should say admitting that like we there are ways to operate that we can reach for that's probably better than what we're currently doing. It's hard to admit that with like honesty. I think you're doing a great job. This is where I build you back up. I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think you've grown more than most people that I come across. I think that both those growing pains are going to be pretty tough challenges. And just expect it and know that you're going to get there and you will. I think you also have to know what there is. So that's why I talk about best case scenario. You know what I mean? Or what, like, and according to me, I can only, but what, like, an ideal state of mind or happiness would be, or an ideal scenario walking in at the end of a long day. That's why I said that, like, it's really important. And this is something that I've never really heard anywhere, but we all have a lowest common denominator emotionally. That when, we're sick or we're tired or we're not feeling good or we didn't sleep well or our back's hurting or we had a toothache, that like is going to come out. And a lot of the work that we do on ourselves in therapy is to identify what that lowest common denominator is in all seasons, in all facets of ourselves, in all seasons, and then raise that up slowly but surely. Most people don't suffer with the best sides of themselves. Most people suffer and complain about the lowest sides. So that's why it's important to raise those up, to get it from, oh, when I'm hurt and tired, I tend to be, I don't know, bitchy, cranky. I don't know. I don't know. But when you see that in yourself, you can change that. That's the dog outside. Yeah. When you see that, like when you start to be able to see it, when your awareness can see something repeated on a repetitive basis, that's when it'll start to change, because you naturally don't want that. And when you see it and see it, you see it over and over, it will be different just because your awareness is shining on it. And when you are in your next lowest common denominator moment, it'll be better because you'll remember the last time and the time before that and the time before that. That's why I say it's so important to stay in this moment that you're living in so that you can track those moments, become a stalker of self patterns.
I think what I was going to say earlier was that I was going to say the thing about ages, and that I don't, I mean this in like a not weird, creepy way, but that I truly think that when we choose to accept someone in our lives, whether it's ourselves or our partner, our parents, or our children, that like we don't accept them at the physical age that they're at. We accept every bits of them, past, present, and future,
Mm-hmm.
and every age, past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like this thing that I have a difficult time managing, because there's certain in like people that like, it's different with like friends and family and the people you're closest with. People you're closest with is the hardest to navigate these relationships, because there's like a certain type of etiquette with strangers in public, or a certain level of leniency you're given. You're just meeting someone, you're new to an opportunity situation, certain type of etiquette or professionalism at work. But when you get with,
Very easy
yes,
because your
yes,
interactions are limited.
yes, but when you get with your friends and family, your partners, especially partners, like you just accept them, the ability for them to be, maybe you show up, if you're dating if my partner's 30 years old, and if I'm dating a 30-year-old man, and I think I'm going to come home
Mm-hmm.
to my 30-year-old partner tonight, then you think you're going to get that and you get something different. And it's the same way vice versa. It's like he may think he's going to get 27-year-old MRS
Mm-hmm.
when I walk through the door, and instead he gets bratty 12-year-old version of me that is demanding and annoying, and I'm like, I want this and this, and I'm not as self-aware, and I'm like, take care of me, and you get the bratty version of me. Or I might walk in the door one day and it's not the 27-year-old version of me, it's the 75-year-old lady that's like an old woman that's crotchety, that's like,
Yeah.
that was in my young days, that's for you young kids. And he's like, who is this woman
Mm-hmm.
in front of me? And I feel like it's difficult, right? It's like, I've heard people, especially over TikTok, or people talk about their partners when
Mm-hmm.
they talk about like the severe weaponized incompetence, when they talk about the severe like, my partner pulls no weight. And that's not what I'm complaining about in my relationship. But when I talk about like the severe, like people that choose their partners and feel like consistently year over year, every year, they don't in any way feel like they have a partner. They feel like they are taking care of another little man child. And you're like, I didn't sign on for this. And they don't leave. And they're like, well, I have a kid now, or we have a house, or we're married. And the signs were all there, but I guess I just have to stay. Versus that's a different situation. I'm not talking about that when you're just like, I've chosen a partner that ends up wanting to put no work in, doesn't want to grow. Every day they show up and they try to be the worst version of themselves because they know they can be with you because you're not going to go. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, when you're with a partner. I say these things because are the things I hear from clients all the time. From the clients I work with, these are the things I hear all of the time. These crazy, insane behaviors.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, this is the trope. I'm not saying it's only by these people, but oftentimes, I've seen this trope of a woman in her, mid 40s
Mhm.
that works her ass off, can be the breadwinner for the entire family often, or equally pays the bills, takes care of everything with the children, fully takes care of the house, and the husband is off playing with his new Tesla all the time, comes home 3 hours late, doesn't do anything ever. And he doesn't do anything, and she's just like, oh, he'll be back soon. Didn't he get off of work at 6? Yeah, it's 9. Oh, he drives around like there's no accountability. The partners have no accountability. They don't hold the other person accountable. They tiptoe around their partner. I see like these crazy stories, like the.
So when you're
I'm getting off track.
no, but if you're in an environment where you see that kind of um you see those kinds of relationships, uh there's this thing that happens where like you have a reaction to it which is probably dissonant, where you don't like what you're seeing, however you are absorbing it.
Mm.
So like on those kind of days you'll go home and expect your significant other to be
Mm.
the polar opposite of the version you saw with the guy in the Tesla
Mm.
driving joyrides after work. Like you'll expect yours to be tip top, whatever, dinner ready, house clean, dog walked,
Yeah.
because like you're asking them to correct the imbalance that you saw at work
Yes.
knowingly.
Yes.
You shouldn't do that. That's why it's so
Absolutely.
important to be aware.
Absolutely, 100%. And like I walk in, they're just like, and they're just chilling, or they're sitting on the couch, or they're playing video game after they get home from work, and I start freaking out because it's
Mm-hmm.
the same exact thing my mother did when she saw me. She worked her ass. She saw the same thing. She was an RN in labor and delivery. She sees all these women coming in to have a baby, and some of them are abandoned by their partner, or the partner shows up and they could barely care. They're like acting like they're like donating all of their precious time just to be there while their partner has their child, births their child. And she sees all this like insane incompetence, these people that don't really care. And she comes home and she walks in, and I didn't empty the dishwasher, and I didn't take care of the cleaning of the kitchen. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like 12, and I didn't take care of cleaning the house like I said I would, when she left for work at 6 a.m. And she starts freaking out, and she's just like, I didn't raise you to be those people I saw at the hospital, these people I see all of the time. And so then
So
I
what,
do the
like
same thing.
she unknowingly wanted you to correct the imbalance that she saw all day.
Oh, 1,000% all the time. When she would go out and see kids that she thought were shitty, she would be like, you don't act like that. Like, I would get a lesson and be like, well, you don't act like that. I'm
And
like, I
that's
don't.
so fair, isn't it? That's the things we heap
And
onto our
I
people.
don't notice these things.
So
I
fair.
don't even notice these behaviors in myself until I say it out loud. And absolutely, like when my mother would come home, and maybe the job was done. Maybe the kitchen was clean. Maybe the task she asked me to do was even taken care of. But when there was something about it that when my mother would come in and see me resting and not doing anything, that like lit her on fire
Mm-hmm.
and made her just this visceral reaction of being like, how dare you be resting? I never get a moment to rest. How dare you? You should be doing something. And I try hard not to be that, but God, do I have my moments of seeing someone just like not doing something while I'm doing something. Maybe they did stuff all day earlier today. Maybe they did something all week and they're taking the day off. Whatever. Like, maybe they absolutely deserve to rest, but when I see it sometimes, It's this.
Wait a minute, wait. They deserve to rest. Did you just say that? Did you just say that like because if somebody needs rest, they deserve to rest. And it doesn't
Absolutely.
matter what they did before.
100%. I didn't mean it like
No,
that.
no, you did. You did. You just didn't know you did. You did mean it that way because of how you said it.
You're right.
So
You're
like
right.
rest
You're
isn't
right.
based on, the
I
need.
was raised to think you had to
Right.
you had to earn
You would
your
earn your
rest.
rest. No, no. Sometimes you
Yes.
just need
You
it.
had to earn your
And
rest.
and
I
then
was I had my mother was
if
here.
you have the financial luxury to take it, you do.
Yes.
You don't
Yes.
have to earn it. You don't have to earn that in this life. You don't have to earn love in this life. That's not fucking love. It's conditional.
Yeah. Yep. Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
That's my messed up default. I come home, I see you resting. The fuck are you resting for? I haven't rested all day.
Hmm.
You got home 2 hours ago. You had even less time. You had to work less hours than I did. Why are you resting? You entitled son of a bitch. Like these horrible things that come out, these responses that are like ingrained within me.
Which is it's interesting because it's like a reverse, like you having that thought of you entitled son of a bitch. It's like what you should be thinking if you could in those moments is, wow, look at how entitled I am that I think it's okay for me to think that about them.
Definitely.
But we don't do that.
I'm trying.
Right. But
Yeah,
in
I'm trying very
those
hard.
annoyed moments, what happens is you drop from a level of awareness and fall into the emotional body. You
Definitely.
lose your higher self. You lose your awareness. You fall into the emotion of the moment, and you act on it. And then you have to recover somehow from your action. You have to make up for it. You have to correct the damage that your emotion just caused on that person. You have to somehow correct the how you view your ego or look or image has been tarnished by your monstrous reaction to them
Mm,
just lounging on the couch.
monstrous reaction. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now you're like compensating from another level, right? You're like, oh, let me try to be real nice. And
Definitely.
so we're stuck in life always trying to catch up, and we're on this like treadmill, and if we would just stop the mind and be still, we might be able to catch our footing. But if we don't stop the mind and slow down, we never will.